The first part of the wizard that you need to complete is the business information. This is information about you and your practice, so the way that you operate. So whether you're a sole practitioner, a partnership, a limited company, that will help not only in terms of the final engagement letter and the format and the information that's contained within the final engagement letter, but also when you're looking at the scopes and the terms and conditions and the schedules of services, it will ensure that it refers to you either in the singular or the plural, depending on the nature of your business. In the people section, we want to have some information in terms of how many directors, partners, etc. there are within the practice, as well as whether you've got staff or not. And again, what this does is it helps to dictate when the terms and conditions are being produced for you and the rest of the engagement letter. Some of the phraseology in that will be changed dependent upon whether you actually have any staff, whether you're just a sole practitioner or whether you're in partnership. The professional bodies part of the wizard is one of the most exciting features, or one of my favourite features in terms of what it is that we've done. We spent a lot of time going through the most commonly used professional bodies rules and regulations to make sure that when you select the professional body that you're a member of, the terms and conditions and other aspects of the letter will actually be tailored to make sure that they comply with the requirements of your particular body. If you're a member of a body which itself is not a supervisor for money laundering purposes, or alternatively, if you're not a member of a professional body, then it will also ask you to determine which professional body or which organisation actually monitors you for money laundering purposes, so that again, the tailoring within the terms and conditions can be particular to you as a practice. The investment services part of the wizard is one of the areas that you need to make sure you get right, because it results in quite a lot of personalisation within the terms and conditions. We start off by asking you whether you provide any investment services to your clients, and if you do so, whether you do that directly yourself, whether you do it by referral to a third party. So if the answer to that's no, you just move on to the next section. If you provide the investment services yourselves, then you can either do that through a direct registration with the Financial Conduct Authority, or alternatively in certain circumstances through your professional body, which would then allow you to provide a range of exempt regulated activities to your clients. So you'd have to determine which one of those you fell into. We also then ask you whether you're on the Financial Conduct Authority's register to provide certain other insurance services. And again, if you are, then you tick that box, and that would determine some of the terminology and some of the contents of the terms and conditions within your letter of engagement. The next part of the wizard asks you whether you provide consumer credit services. So this could be, for example, allowing people to pay you on extended credit. If you do that, you'll have to confirm whether you are registered directly with the Financial Conduct Authority, or whether you're registered and regulated through your professional body as a designated professional body. The Audit Services section requires some basic information from you where you're registered to provide audit services to your clients. Firstly, it will ask you which jurisdiction you're registered for, so whether that's the UK, Ireland, or the UK and Ireland. And then it will ask you what your registration number is, or what your entry is on the audit register, which will then again mean that within the terms and conditions it will include your registration details, which are a requirement of the regulations. All of the professional bodies require you to have professional indemnity insurance, and which is a protection for you as well as for your clients. This section requires you to put in some basic information in terms of your professional indemnity insurance, so the coverage, whether that's worldwide or whether it's worldwide excluding America or whatever else, and then details of who you've got your insurance policy with. The services regulations require you, where you have professional indemnity insurance, to notify your clients that you have the insurance, and you can either do that by saying to people, we've got PI insurance, and this is where you can see details of it, so you can direct them through to a website address or to your business address where they can actually see the details of the current policy. Or alternatively, you can just say who you have the insurance with and the address of your insurers. If you do the latter, which you can do through the wizard, if you do the latter, then you've just got to be a little bit careful, because If you use a broker and you might change your insurers from one to another, you've got to make sure that that triggers you to remember to come back into the wizard and change the information so that all of your proposals are updated for that information. With the advent of GDPR, the rules and regulations around data protection became more complex. And so this part of it is just trying to collect some basic information in respect of who's responsible within your practice for data protection issues. Also information in terms of whether you actually transfer data outside of the European Economic Area, which would be very common if you're using cloud-based software, or alternatively if you're using some form of outsourcing agency. And by collecting this information, what you can do is you can ensure that within the terms and conditions, the information that is included in there in respect of data handling is actually specific to the type of information that you hold and how you utilize it. This next section is looking at how you deal with client money and commission within your practice. What's included within the terms and conditions, whether you say that you hold client money or not, will depend upon what your professional body actually requires within the regulations. Where there is no specific mention of it within the regulations, we'll just put in best practice in terms of what it is that you should do. Client money is where, for example, you receive a tax rebate on behalf of your clients, so it comes into your account rather than going directly to the clients, in which case you should be putting it into an account that's separate to your office accounts, because it's not actually physically your money. So if you hold client money, as some practices will, then you say that you do, and then it will, within the terms and conditions, give some information in terms of how you'd actually deal with that client money. And then for commissions, for example, if within investment business you said that you will introduce to an authorised third party and you receive commissions for that introduction, then it will again direct you towards what you do with that commission. Where you're a member of a professional body, in most cases they will have something within their rules in respect of how you deal with complaints, and in certain of the circumstances they will actually provide an alternative dispute resolution service, or require you to actually confirm that you're prepared to enter into conciliation in the respect of a complaint. This part of it will then determine what goes into the terms and conditions in respect of what happens when somebody wants to make a complaint. So how they can do that, who they'll complain to, and what the outcome of that complaint could be, whether you'd go to conciliation or whether that would be an option or not. The final question within the wizard is an issue of best practice. So that if you have a client you've been unable to contact for a period of time, at what point do you actually determine that you're no longer acting for that client? At what point would you notify HMRC that you're no longer acting for that client, so that you can discontinue any correspondence and you can resign from the engagement? So it's best practice really to include that timescale within your terms, so that a client will know that they can no longer call you their accountant if they've had no correspondence with you, or haven't replied to correspondence that's come from you for a certain period of time.